Employers of Reddit, what actually makes you like a resume? It depends on what your mum's profession is. It sounds like she's been at the same company for a long time, so I would recommend showing her job tenure at the company while outlining her career progression within said company. Tenure is amazing for securing a new job. Career progression is amazing for landing an upper level job. If there are any large career gaps, ensure that she explains them, for example, raising children, taking care of an ailing parent, etc. Never leave career gaps of 6 months or more unexplained. Skill words are big, repeat them as much as possible without being obvious. This is especially important if uploading resumes to a job site like Career Builder or Monster. These sites use keyword matching, and the more you repeat a keyword, the higher your resume appears on the employer's search list. If your mum would like anyone to look at her resume, I'd be happy to. Please message me. If so, I've been a corporate recruiter for about 6 years now. I'm not an employer, but I did review resumes. 1. Being straightforward. 2. Being organized and logical about presentation of information. 3. Knowing what information is important and what isn't. 4. Showing effort and willingness to learn. You've gotten some pretty good advice on writing a resume here, so I am not going to bother giving you more of that. What I will say is this: every job I have ever gotten was because I knew someone. The way you make yourself stick out from the crowd is through connections. The best thing your mother has going for her is her age. She likely knows quite a few people, and she would be wise to use that to her advantage. Very much this. There's a whole sub-level of jobs out there on the hidden job market. I think something like 60% of engineering jobs go completely unadvertised, so you need networks to get them. Have to say, it is pretty difficult to network as an inexperienced uni student, but people are generally very happy to help if you ask. Clean, neat, tidy. Don't spell any words incorrectly. I have been very close to returning resumes with red pen correction marks. But most importantly, not looking for real experience, as I work in retail. I really love to see volunteer work. It can be any volunteer work from an adult home, hospital work, pet shelters, etc. One of the most memorable and moving applications resumes that I received was from a young lady who volunteered at an animal shelter in the area. Her reason for leaving was too soft-hearted. When it came time to put an animal down, I knew immediately she would connect with customers because I could tell she was caring. Thank you. It's good to know that volunteer time is counted. I took off several years after working decades at a university and then volunteered at a local hospital. I'm back working full-time now, but it's nice knowing that gap in between may still be worth something to a future employer. iPhone so short post. 15 years as a headhunter. If you need resume help, feel free to PM me and I'll do what I can. Job hunting and interview advice too. I have helped a bunch of Redditors before from other posts similar to this. Interview advice would be awesome. It makes me mad that I can talk to just about anyone, but when put into a formal interview situation I become functionally retarded. Relevant experience tailored to the job you are applying for. Tip: lose the objective statement and don't list hobbies. You are wasting my time with that crap. Get straight to the point. Detail the experience you have and don't use a bunch of fancy words. As a point of reference, I am typically looking for senior level people, so I also look for people that have stayed at a company for a while. When I get someone who changes jobs every 2 years, then I typically pass on it, as senior level people need to show that they stuck something out. I recruited for several higher level business positions. I could not believe the really oddball crap that I got. I advertised for a radiologist that had MRI experience. I got 2 letters that basically said, "I accept." Accept what? We hadn't even discussed the work, much less compensation. Make sure your resume bullet points show the impact of your accomplishments. For example, if you created a pricing model for your product, you should write that and say that with your pricing model, you uncovered $100,000 in losses and that new pricing rates should increase by 30%. It shows what you did and how it ultimately benefited the company as a whole. I'm no expert, but a bit of advice I've given many aspiring young people regarding resume preparation is as follows. Write the best resume you can, whatever that ends up being. Give it to a friend, in a safe place, read on, and set the bottom of it on fire. When they drop it, ask them what they remember from what they read. In my experience, people who review resumes spend roughly that amount of time reading them and feel very similar while reading to holding something they'd be delighted to get rid of as soon as possible. If they remember your name and anything else, you've got a good foundation for a better resume. Try again. I personally like to aim for the reader to want to put out the fire so they can keep reading, which generally means hooking them in less than 3 seconds. This is interesting. I'm going to try it with my wife and see what she can remember. Please tell her to read it over to herself and let someone else look at it. Example, saw one that instead of saying jack of all trades he said jack of all trades. That wasn't an error. No one realizes in this thread that if you are over a certain age when applying for a job 9 out of 10 times it will be passed up. Age bias is a huge problem right now. We have a bad society and there is no way to win. Young people coming out of college would like a job. Older people who didn't save up correctly need a job. The only way to win is choosing the right field. Trades are good as after a certain age things get more difficult for you. When they do you can retire or go into easier stuff for the trade, leaving the door open to young workers. The cover letter can be more important than the resume. I used to screen the resumes for a company I worked for and we got so many that the ones that really had a shot were the ones with awesome cover letters or email body. When I left that position for another, I did a great cover letter and was told that was the only reason I got an interview. Cover letters can be big when applying for jobs directly, although I can tell you that most screeners recruiters just skim past them. Unless it's an executive or upper management level job, a well executed cover letter won't make much of a difference. I was digging through some old files at my work and found this awesome resume shaped like a foot. It had all the standard information on it, but also at the top it said, "Dear Mr. I'd like to get my foot in the door at your company." Apparently it worked and he got hired. I know I'd love something like that for a resume, haha. Brevity, clarity, spelling and grammar. I'm never looking for good resumes. I'm looking for flawed ones which I can immediately discard. Sadly, that's the most of them. The remaining candidates, if roughly qualified, get an interview and are judged from scratch. For me, a strong CV is not evidence of a strong candidate, but a sloppy one will eliminate you immediately. It's the same way with handshakes. I want to see a well-written cover letter and a one-page resume with no padding. A second page for job skills and references is fine. For a professional who needs to show research accomplishments, a curriculum vitae is more appropriate than a resume. For creative work, a portfolio is usually necessary. A Gmail email account is more respectable than an AOL account. Sorry, AOL. Watch the email address. It should be neutral, not inappropriate. I have seen applicants mask age by dropping graduation years and all but the most recent 10 years or so of job history, and understand why. It doesn't affect our hiring decisions, but I know this is not true for all employers. And I hate to say it, but I've seen it happen too many times. Appearances do matter. A few new wardrobe pieces and a trip to the salon for some hair coloring and a great style can help get a job offer out of an interview. Also, update eyeglass frames while your medical coverage is still in force. 1980s frames look dated and make an applicant look dated and unconcerned about appearance. All the best to your mum in her career. I would never want to work for you if I can't be retro. You know what people say about making a good first impression? Well, for me, a good grade, high quality paper makes a CV stand out from the masses. Make sure to print it on resume paper. It's a thicker stock and is almost like a linen. Anyone that turns in a resume to me on that gets instant kudos. I second this. Use a heavier weight of paper with a good quality white tone, instantly recognizable when sifting through hundreds of resumes. When I was taking applicants for my new assistant, I didn't care what was in the resume so much as how professional the resume looked. I covered the content in the interview. That being said, when someone calls you for an interview and they are looking for someone who is going to work hard, don't choose "today I don't feel like doing anything" for your ringback tone. Also, screw ringback tones. Follow-up question. Is there something we can do for an unimpressive resume or a youthful one with little on it to make it catch any attention? For the love of God, spell check and grammar check. Keep it to 2 pages if possible. If I read one more objective, I'm going to hurt a piece of furniture. Objectives. To spell check and reduce resume length. Bolt the furniture to the floor. Keep your photograph off of the resume. This is becoming a new trend in the HR world and I am not sure why. It just opens up one more way for someone to inadvertently discriminate against you. It's all about communication. Once I went for a basic position and came out after the interview only to find out I got a manager's position. It's all about connecting with the employer regardless of age. I like resumes that are direct and to the point. A long resume is likely to not get read. Most employers get slaughtered resumes and don't want to spend hours reading them. The really important stuff comes out in an interview. If possible, hand resume to them in person. Faces are more memorable than paper. Hiring older workers is a little different. You do it with a set of expectations that you simply don't have for a 22-year-old, and a resume that reflects those expectations can make an older worker very attractive to a hiring manager. Training. There is only so much training that I am willing to invest in a term employee. An older employee's resume needs to say I am ready to do the job on day one without you investing much in me. History of success. A junior person is a gamble that you can take. An older person is not, and their ability to do whatever the job is needs to be demonstrated and clearly articulated in a resume. A personal network. A lot of older employees' greatest contribution is the industry-specific personal network they bring. If her industry is one where people know each other, make sure her network reach is represented. Some call it name dropping, but it is useful. A history of adaptability. Show how she has adapted to change in her work history, but here's the catch. If you show a skill set that is too broad, people will assume that you were only tangential to the projects on your resume, and you want them to know that you were integral to it. Was assistant manager in a grocery store at the cash registers. So people gave me their CVs to then bring it to the store manager. People, when you say you're good at office, I expect your list of abilities and schooling to be properly lined up. When you press spacebar 7 times to make a list, you clearly show you have no idea what you're talking about. Example: XX school, XZZ school, XXZ school. Use the list function. Also, saying you use well the internet makes me think you just woke up from a long coma. I'm a temp recruiter. We use people in that age bracket all the time. I spend about 10 seconds on each resume. And what I am looking for, I hire finance and accounting staff only, is software, recognizable companies, and certain job titles duties. I don't give a crap about claims of attention to detail, able to work independently or in a team, a passion for process improvement or any other soft, unquantifiable claim. In Freakonomics, they discussed how high sale prices for houses correlated with terms like marble, granite, architect, Corinthian, but not with terms like ideal, fantastic, charming. Likewise, on resume, success is correlated with terms like SAP, Hyperion, Oracle, MBA, senior financial analyst, Ernst & Young, but not with seeking a challenging position, ability to meet tight deadlines, superior customer service skills, diligent, professional, etc. She should look at the ads for roles similar to what she'd be targeting and find the keywords that are most frequently front and center in the requirements of the role and make sure they're front and center on her resume. Forget about the career objective or summary blurb at the top that so many guides advise you to use and make it a 3-column bullet list of those hard skills that employers are asking for in ads. And tell her to consider temping, since there isn't the issue of her being a flight risk due to proximity to retirement. If it's temporary, nobody cares. I have at least a dozen women over 55 out crunching numbers for me every day. No spelling or grammar errors. You have all the time in the world to proofread it. There is no excuse for an error. A concise work history. A clear skill section with accurate gauges of ability. If you rate yourself as a 9 out of 10 in something, you better know it backwards and forwards. A cover letter that addresses all of the points in the job description. An example of the last one would be something like, you must have at least 5 years experience frobbing a thingies. I have been frobbing thingies since 1996. I first frobbed a thingy to make the actuators sparkle, but over time I learned to use frobbing to darken the drive plates as well. You should work well with other groups. When I was at Yoadine Industries, I worked together with John Smallberries in IT and John Yaya in plant management to ensure proper fluid levels were maintained. Your favorite color should be green. While green is not my favorite color, I do like it and find it soothing. I believe that I have sufficient experience from my time at Wolfram and Hart to overcome any problems that could arise from liking blue, which is an element of green, more than green. Tell me what you can do for me. Don't tell me how great you are. I will be the judge of that. Explain to me how your past experience will relate to this position. Most importantly, tell me you want the job. Otherwise you are just another piece of paper. I've only interviewed 15 people in my life, so I wouldn't say I'm a hiring manager. Most of the time it was because I received a promotion, and my manager, the one who would actually hire, trusted me enough to do an interview and recommend candidates. What I looked for were a few simple things. Misspelled words. If you don't care enough to proofread your resume, then I don't care enough to finish reading it. Typos in emails and chat programs are one thing, but not in your resume. Grammar errors. I was much more lenient on this, but if the resume wasn't readable, I didn't try. Experience. Does the experience fit the position? Are you too senior or too junior? I would always consider a person too junior for the position over a person too senior. They can learn and grow, but a senior person will grow bored and end up leaving sooner than later, in my experience. Formatting, font size, spacing, bold, italics, indents, etc. were all consistent. I don't want to read a resume you just copied off the internet, threw in your own information and didn't even bother to format it correctly. Cover letters. Just me, but I couldn't give two shoots about a cover letter. I often never read them. I just wanted a brief paragraph at the top of your resume. Length. If your resume is 5 pages long, I'm not going to read it. Try to keep it under 2 pages. Some jobs, or people with a ton of experience, this may be hard to do, but you can do a lot with fonts and borders. You also don't want it to be too short either. Giving me a half-page resume is crap. If this is for a new college grad application, I'm sure you can come up with experiences from clubs, activities, etc. Overall, a lot of this is superficial, and I understand that. But if you can't get past the initial resume screening, no one is going to interview you. Why would I pick this frumpy, misspelled, horribly formatted resume? Especially when there is one that is nice and proper as the next item in my inbox. What I truly didn't get sometimes was that we often had hiring agents present us candidates. They would format the person's resume to match their standard boilerplate templates. We had 2 agencies that would literally copy paste, and that was it. Then we had agencies that took the time, most likely proofread, corrected any issues, etc. Needless to say, we stopped accepting resumes from some agencies. I wish they lowered the retirement age so people like your mom were able to retire gainfully and keep the market open for the 50% of college graduates that are underemployed or unemployed. I hope this doesn't get buried, because I think this piece of advice goes ignored or unnoticed by job seekers too often. I'm not hiring manager, but my resume has worked for me, and very quickly. 3 weeks after my internship ended, I had another job. My advice is to make it look awesome. Make it fit the type of jobs you're applying for. For example, my resume looks like a newspaper because my focus is journalism. So my name is the headline. There are teasers at the top, and all of my education experience look like brief articles. If you have any friends who can help with graphic design, I'd ask them for help. If you don't, I'd be happy to help as well. The design will make it stand out to employers, and even if they hate it, they'll still look at it longer than the rest because it isn't the same old black and white Word doc resume. I got callbacks from several job inquiries, and all of them remarked on my resume. Some said it was interesting, others said it was cool, nice, etc. I've never know if they hated it or not, but at least it got their attention. Depends on what job she's done in the past and what job she's going for. There are good websites out there with examples of the different sorts of resumes. Tech, arts, management, customer service. Look at those and get a feel for what's out there. If she's in a tech field, I'd be willing to look her resume over. For me it being only 1 page in length. One succinct, well written, and well laid out page. I would learn the rest during the interview. That said, I work in the world of emerging technology companies. The world of big corporate is a process-filled mess that doesn't appreciate that, so you may need something that scans well. Basically, smaller companies are more likely to read the resume. I also love to see a good cover letter where you bother to read about my company. If you do that, I am phoning you for sure just to thank you. You should look into getting her on LinkedIn and connected with her professional network. I find that trying to customize a resume is like tap dancing while blindfolded in a minefield of mistakes. Missing commas, hanging commas. A resume is like a shag rug. Editing it is like throwing it into the surf and letting it wash up on the beach and hoping you get every sand grain of error out. I would love to be able to do this without errors that are impossible to see until hit send or submit or months later, but alas, it is simply impossible, and not for lack of effort, care or consideration. A few key things that always grab my attention. Email address shouldn't be something ridiculous or unprofessional. Create one with your name for a job search. Spelling, typos. Please be careful. And if you know this isn't your strong suit, ask a friend. And don't be offended by their suggestions. Font. It doesn't have to be fancy or perfect, but it should be consistent and professional. If you bold one job title, bold them all. If you use Calibri for one section, consider using it throughout. Capitalize properly. Proper names, like your own or your street's name or even a company name, should be capitalized. The same applies when completing applications online. Names in all lowercase is an easy way to be filtered out of my search. These may seem harsh to some, or ridiculously common sense to others. I'm not saying I'm right, but everyone has things they look for. If I'm looking for someone with excellent attention to detail, their resume and application are my first peek at their ability. Though I'm sure your mom can't put it on there, but I like when I see people that put on there that they are an Eagle Scout or even Life. Girl Scouts I think have gold and silver award, but those kinds of things stand out to me, that someone so young can make a commitment to something so difficult to achieve. Honestly, if you can neatly organize a resume, spell everything correctly, and put reasonable, believable, and, even better, verifiable data, then you're leagues and leagues ahead of your competition. The vast majority of resumes that I see are crammed full of buzzwords, and I know you don't know what half of these things mean. They're crowded walls of text, tons of extraneous and useless information that give me nothing to work with, and misspellings out the wazoo. If you can't spell or at least have someone else look over your resume before sending it in, then I have serious doubts about your abilities to perform any job duties I may give you. As far as content goes, the best thing you can do is give me specifics about projects or jobs. Things that make me go cool. I want to know more about this. For the age thing, my mother had similar problems, and her solution was always to just say, look, I don't need a huge salary, I don't need a ladder to the top. I just want a place to work and contribute to a team and keep myself busy. You guys seem like a great place to work, and I think I'd like it here. That approach won't always work, but I think the key here is to set expectations early. For someone in her 60s, there's very little need for a high salary or opportunity for advancement. My mother found great success in a small company that just needs someone to do HR stuff, and while her decades of experience qualified her for very high-paying, high-responsibility positions, she was more than happy to take a low-stress, lower-paying job to pay the bills and keep busy. Respond with the tone of the job posting. I write paragraphs of text and request the same in response. It's an entry-level job, so bullet points don't mean crap. And yeah, I frickin' swear, it's shameful how few actually put an effort into their response. As for experienced positions in technology, I don't care what you did 20 years ago. What are you going to do for me now? Tell me who you are. Tell me why you're better than your fellow bullet points. A few things I look for. Proper spelling and grammar. More than one way to contact the person. Only relevant experience. Any professional training. CPR or first aid certification. Any special skills. Relevant timeline. List of duties at relevant job experience. More towards application processing, etc. But I cannot tell people enough. Make sure you have all the requested documents. for example, verified it, etc. It makes the admin people love you that much more, meaning your application is going to be seen at a time when the assessor is happy. I was a hiring manager, not an hour person, so my perspective is different than some. I look for evidence of relevant experience. I generally ignore adjectives such as proactive or results oriented, but they won't necessarily cause me to throw a resume into the trash. Neither will minor formatting errors, say, a font switch in one paragraph. But I'm not the HR person, who may very well screen for exactly that, so do it anyway. And all that fluff takes up as much space as content that does matter. What I really want to see is what you accomplished, what problems you faced, and what the results were. For example, cut bug fix time by half in 6 months means more than senior developer for 6 months. For someone in their 60s, not much specific advice. She's in a protected class for discrimination suits, but it's costly and difficult to prove discrimination anyway. Many of the reasons employers won't hire an older person are fallacious, but the best you can do is prepare to neutralize any of those bull's objections if they come up during an interview, usually in coded form. For example, we want someone who will stay longer. Answer: in our field, median time before changing jobs is 10 months. I'll commit to stay at least 5 years. When shortlisting for a post, a friend of mine threw all of the CVs with spelling mistakes straight into the bin, and all that had ignored the write in black pen only request, a mistake I would now never make. A personalized cover note which shows some understanding of the position and company. It should state how you think you can contribute to the role and highlight your personality as much as your capabilities. A resume that is concise and gets to the employment history section quickly. I don't want to read about hobbies and school marks. I want to know about the other organizations that hired this person. Any awards or notable achievements are a bonus too. In advertising, people often submit their portfolios and resumes separately, but I think including one piece that you're particularly known for in your resume is a good idea. A few people below mentioned a cover letter, which I agree with. An employer wants to know straight up what the employee's intentions and goals are. Are they wanting to add value and make an impact in the industry, or are they just jumping ship for another paycheck? I would keep this cover blurb short, factual and optimistic. There are also country-specific points that have to be looked up. For instance, in Canada, never put a picture in the resume. In part of Europe, it is accepted or even recommended. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.